Welcome, everyone, to the ComedySportz Podcast with your host, Christine Rollo Capriolo, and today's guest, the master and commander of the far side of comedy, Peter Psycho 3 Alberts.
Hey, welcome back to the ComedySportz Podcast. I'm Christine Rollo Capriolo. Very excited. I have a friend calling in from LA today, someone I admired as a youth, looking up to when I'd go to ComedySportz, particularly watching those Dead Alewives. Ladies and gentlemen, it's Peter Alberts. Hey, Peter.
Hi, how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm so excited I'm on the phone.
Well, I'm so excited you were willing to give us some of your time today for the podcast. I really appreciate it.
Well, it's a lovely way to start a sunny California day.
Well, that's right. So you're out in LA, right?
I am.
Well, I always start the podcast by asking my guests where you were born and raised.
I was born in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, south side of Milwaukee.
South side. Awesome. So where'd you go to high school then?
Hamilton.
Really?
Yeah, it was, my best part was graduating high school.
Good job on that. Congratulations.
Yeah, I didn't like high school that much.
No?
I took real many classes and got out a year early.
You got out a year early?
Yeah, I was 16 when I graduated.
16?
And then I started college too young.
Okay.
Didn't do that well.
Where'd you go? UW Milwaukee?
Yeah.
Okay.
I started out in, I wanted to take law classes, and I was taking pre-law stuff, and then I went into engineering because that's what I was better at.
Okay.
And then I started taking theater classes, mixing that in with stuff. And then I met this guy when I was waiting tables who thought I was funny and said I should go to ComedySportz and watch them. And he was one of the performers, so I did that and thought it was pretty neat. Who
was that guy? Do you remember?
I can't think of his name. He was a nice guy, but he ended up, by the time I started performing with ComedySportz, he had moved to Racine, and then I just kind of fell out of my memory now.
That's okay. We'll hunt him down for you.
Yeah, sorry about that guy that got me into it. I appreciate it.
So what kind of kid were you? You said you didn't like school?
Wait, did you say what kind of kid was I?
Yeah, like you said you didn't like school, but yet you graduated early. That's a pretty amazing.
I was a really cool kid. I just, they didn't know it.
They didn't know it yet.
Yeah, I don't know. I just didn't think that the stuff that most of the kids in my school were into was the stuff I was into. I wasn't a sports kid.
Yeah.
As soon as I got out of college, I started buying old motorcycles and fixing them up and stuff like that. But I was more into music with my older brothers and sisters. So, I liked going out to see punk rock shows and stuff like that.
Okay.
My school is going in a different direction. So all of a sudden, I'm 17. When I started college, I just turned 17, and all the bars were available to me except my brother's ID.
Okay.
Drinking age was 18 at the time, so you could go when you're pretty young.
Sure.
So all these cool bars were opening up around town. There's this punk bar called The Underground, and Cafe Voltaire was over in Bayview, and
yeah,
we just went and saw bands almost every night. It was just such a cool change of pace. That school, I didn't do that good in college, so I was having so much fun at night. But then once I figured out about ComedySportz and started doing that, I could mix my fun with what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
So once we started taking workshops. I started with a really good group of people. I think my beginning class was me, Kurt Scholler, Mundy Carter, Jennifer Rupp was in it.
Sure.
I can't remember because some of them are right before me, like Holly Ignatowski and G-Man, Paul Stazak.
Yeah.
I don't know. It was pretty neat. There's a bunch of and the people who were on stage back then are still some of the mainstays. It was all the guys from Brady Street who we all looked up to so much.
Sure.
Bo Johnson was my first teacher.
Yeah, I was going to ask you who your first teacher was and what you remember about workshops when you started.
Well, Bo is my hero. Bo, I just thought he was such a good teacher and was so positive about everything. And, he just made everybody feel good about what they were doing.
Yeah.
And I don't know. he was good enough that when I started the Alewives, it was one of the first ones we asked.
Well, so what year did you start in ComedySportz? Like, when did you start workshops and start playing?
I think my first workshop was in 89, and I think I started in 1990, started performing.
Okay.
I could be off a little bit there.
Yeah. And then talk about when you first started playing. How did that go? Do you remember your first show or anything?
I do. I remember that Joe was my captain.
Joe Cortese?
Yeah. And Ian from the Upright Citizens Brigade.
Ian Roberts?
Ian Roberts was on the other team. And watching him perform it kind of was like, oh my God, am I out of my league? But then I was like, oh, well, if he can do it, I can handle this. And Joe's really a supportive player for new players. He was
yeah.
I remember him just being like putting me out there, like, yeah, you got this, guy, you got this.
Yeah.
Clapping his hands the funny way he does.
Yeah.
And the first show was all right.
Okay. And then were you kind of a regular then? You played every weekend?
No, I had a hard time getting on the regular roster.
Okay.
Dick didn't think I was as funny as I thought I was.
So it took a while.
Yeah, it took a while. I don't know if I ever quite got on the regular roster.
Well, then tell me about how the Alewives came to be. Like, I talked to Kurt Scholler and Bo Johnson already about it, and Kurt really thinks that you were the lead in that, getting that going. Talk about why you decided to start the Alewives.
Well, it started when Sean McKenna and I were out one day, and we were just talking. We made up a sketch, and we were talking about how we wanted to do it somewhere, and we just decided to get together and do a show anywhere that we could get it. So we started asking around at a few places, and some friends of mine told me we could do it at their bar called the Stone Toad.
Yeah, the Stone Toad.
And we started there, and then they went out of business after a few shows. I don't think it was our fault.
Sure.
And then we just kept doing it. At first we started, it was like, who was it? It was Sean McKenna was, of course, he was like my best friend, so he was my first pick for anything, because we were both started at the same time, and anytime we did something together, we just had this magic spark, it seemed like to me.
Oh, that's awesome.
And then we asked Kurt to do it, and Bo and Carol Bauman. They were dating at the time.
Right.
Exciting. Terry Simon performed with us for a little while. Okay. And Brian Green.
Yeah, Brian Green.
I think John Plesnick and Karen Stobie even played a couple of shows when we first started. And when we first started, we were basically just doing a rip-off of ComedySportz and swearing. And then we tried a couple sketches into it. Okay. But, once we started doing it, we started realizing that we really like challenging ourselves and doing more long-form stuff. And that's when it really got exciting, and when we really started doing something a little bit different. And then, because it sort of transformed into more of what other people were doing, more long-form stuff, like kind of like heralds and stuff. We didn't realize we were doing heralds, but we kind of developed heralds just by creating all these tiny little scenes and then interweaving them together to make it all make sense.
Right.
And that was the stuff that we really started getting good at and enjoying to do.
What was your reason for starting it in the first place? Just to have a group that was always together? Or why? Do you remember?
Part of it was because I wasn't getting enough playtime, honestly.
Okay.
And then also because I wanted to do something that challenged us more. Mm-hmm. Because, you can only do so many arms experts and have it be, challenging.
Right.
And not that there's anything wrong with it. ComedySportz is fantastic for entertaining masses of people,
Sure.
Anyone can see a ComedySportz show and be like, oh, I enjoy this.
Yeah.
And you do.
Yeah.
But we wanted to challenge ourselves more and try to get a little deeper into what we could do. And, it's hard to do it in 3 minutes.
Yeah, right. Right. That's fast.
But then, again, the reason I think that we did so well with it, and I think the reason that our performances now are so good still, is that we learned so much about supporting each other and
Sure.
moving at that speed and, listening at that fast, because a lot of groups that start out just doing heralds and long form stuff move at a snail's pace, and it drives you nuts.
Right.
So.
Well, when you started it, were you already doing written work too, scene work that you guys had written together, or did it start with just improv and then you brought in some writing?
Well, like I said, Sean and I came up with an idea to do some written stuff. So we started. I still vividly remember the first sketch we did.
Tell me about it. I want to hear it.
I don't know if I can verbally describe it very good, but basically Sean would walk out on stage and stand there like he was using a urinal, facing the audience. And I'd come up next to him and stand there and kind of uncomfortably like peer at him a little bit. And it's a funny big, what are you doing? He's like, hey man, saying nice. Nothing weird, it's nice. Like, what are you talking about? I'm saying it's nice. They have to get uncomfortable and let the tension build up a little bit. And I'm just saying, it's like got a nice vein, and just keep going until all of a sudden I'm like, hey, man, come on, let me stand by you. And then before you know it, we're having a sword fight. And the brilliance of the ending of this sketch is after Sean yells at me for peeing on him, and I finally apologize. I'm like, hey, come on, let's make it up. How about playing some poop cannons? And the lights go out. And that is the quality of the start of the Dead Alewives.
And that, my audience, is the Dead Alewives. Well, you still remember it.
I just spent some time with Sean McKenna, and we spent a few nights just rolling around laughing our asses off talking about the stupid stuff we did. So I recently found, I reminisced a bit and pulled out boxes of old articles and stuff. And I found the first article that was ever written on us. I don't know what it's in. It must be the Journal. I know Frank Ford took the picture. Okay. And it's of me, Brian Green, and Sean McKenna in characters that we used to play called Bob and Zeke, that were two hillbillies that owned a bait store.
Okay. So as far as the other written sketches go, was it primarily you and Sean, or did all of you guys start to do that together, or how did that work?
We started, at first we would all meet and write together. Okay. And then as the show progressed, like once we got into our final form, the shows that you were coming to were like, when we were really set, and we'd been doing it for a couple years already. Yeah. So those were when, it was Sean, me, Bo, Mundy, Kurt, Dan, and Rob.
Right.
That's everyone, right?
Yeah, that was it.
And, when we were doing those shows, everyone was writing. Everyone wrote very different stuff, which was pretty neat. I've been going through some of our radio show tapes. We had a radio show on WMSC for, I don't know, like 2 years or something like that.
Okay.
And then we'd had a different radio show on NPR, whatever the NPR station is there, for like a year. That was that Hotel Milwaukee thing we did.
Okay.
And we would all write stuff, but at this time, it was like basically what happened is, I think our shows were on Sunday, and we'd stay up all night doing ComedySportz on Saturday, and then go drinking until bars closed at 3:30, and then go to my house and sit and drink until 5:30. And everyone would wake up on my couches with hangovers, and we'd all start writing our sketches for a 3:30 show.
Oh my God.
And Dan Harmon had the first laptop I've ever seen, and it was like about 12 inches thick.
Yeah, right.
With a 3 times larger printer that he'd haul around with him.
Okay.
And that you have to tear the paper off the sides, the little polka dot things.
Oh, yes, the little spots.
And I still remember being mesmerized by how fast he could type. And I got to say, he would type stuff up in his first draft, and it would be like just a funny sketch.
Yeah.
Everyone else would write something and be like, all right, we got to, this part's stupid. This part's all about this dumb joke. Cut this.
Right.
But he was pretty amazing at that, like pounding these things out and like having like his first draft being a good usable sketch.
Wow. That's awesome.
But yeah, we would go to these shows, and a lot of times the radio show, we'd like take these sketches and go down there, and we'd be on air, and you're cold reading stuff. The first time you're reading is on air.
Yeah.
And, listening to those shows is pretty excellent because you could tell we're really pulling it off. You can tell when someone accidentally goes off script or reads somebody else's line or something and pulls it back in and makes sense.
Well, you guys were incredible. I was such a groupie, and I remember coming to see you I thought it was Wednesday nights when you were in the black box at ComedySportz.
Yeah, we were trying to work out where we weren't being an interference to ComedySportz.
Yeah.
So we kind of took the night of the week.
Well, it was my favorite night, going downtown to watch the Dead Alewives. You guys were just incredible entertainers and improv people. It was amazing.
Yeah, it was my favorite night of the week, too.
Yeah? Well, you guys must have felt like rock stars back then.
Yeah, I never missed a show. I mean, I used to go to Southeast Asia and stuff, and sometimes when I do that from the business I was running, I would have to miss one show, and it'd drive me nuts. Otherwise, I would try to schedule every time I'd take a trip. I'd be like, leave on Thursday, come back Tuesday.
Just to be there. Well, that's awesome. That's good.
I was passionate.
Yes. Were you still doing ComedySportz throughout that?
I was. If I wasn't being punished, I was doing it. I loved ComedySportz. I would have, I was one of those people who, if they called me up, I would cancel just about anything to be there to do the show.
Right. What did you learn back then doing ComedySportz and the Alewives that you think still carries with you today in just your regular life?
I mean, I would tell anybody in the world to take a ComedySportz class just to help them through life. Just learning how to get confidence. Yeah. And that just supporting each other and saying yes to stuff opens up all sorts of doors because, as soon as you just take it like, okay, yep, this is it, I'm going to do it. Mm-hmm. You're already in the right mindset to make it succeed. Yeah. And it works with so many things, and just in everyday, like, I don't know if you know, like Mundy Carter. Yeah, I remember him. And Karen they did these TED Talks about working with people with Alzheimer's and dementia, and how if you approach them and they're like, you're the mailman, and you're not, you're their son. You can't just go, no, I'm your son, because their brain can't process it. Right. I'm sure it's slaughtering this. But if you just say, yep, I'm the mailman, I'm here to see you today at your mail, you leave and you come back, then they can process that and move on to the next thought. Oh, wow. So it just kind of works. It's just with everything, if you're just like a good supportive person, and, it's going to help you out in life. And it certainly does in performing. Yeah. When we came out to Los Angeles, when Rob and Dan and I moved out here, was it 97? One of the hardest things I ever did was leaving everybody in Milwaukee and coming out here because I loved it there and we were doing really well. Right. Well, what was your goal going out to LA? Well, we had that comic book, Scrub the Disposable Assassin, that Rob did, right? Rob was the artist. I owned the publishing company. I started the publishing company to make the book for Rob and got rid of my jewelry business. Was that the Fireman Press? Yeah, Fireman Press. And I guess by the fourth book, we started talking to people in Los Angeles about making a film out of it. And in 97, I think, we sold film rights to Oliver Stone. To Oliver Stone? Yeah, they optioned it. Okay. And then they optioned it again. And with the second option, we kind of had enough money that we moved the company out to Los Angeles and decided to just really try to make a go of it. Mm-hmm. And at the time, our plan was to have like a LA Alewives and a Milwaukee Alewives, and never really happened. And then Kurt moved out there not too long after we did. I guess like 6 months after. Yeah. And we never really quite pulled things together. I did a couple of shows with Dan. Like I got some really good performers from Improv Olympic out here. Okay. That I just jumped into Improv Olympic when I got here. Kurt and I started taking classes and doing shows, but they never quite satisfied me doing their form of Herald. Really? What was different? It's a great format, but it's a little, I find it to be a little bit forced, kind of like I felt some of the ComedySportz stuff was. It wasn't open enough. And not all of them are. Some of the groups really mastered and just do such a phenomenal job. And some people are just, I guess, better at the form than I was. Yeah. But I like the little freer style of stuff. So again, after years of doing Herald teams and never really quite feeling like I hit one that I was like, oh, this is great. Because I really missed what we had with the Alewives. We had such a magical bond together.
Yeah.
And I felt like I could just throw myself on stage and someone was going to catch me.
Right.
And then I come out here and I like throw myself on stage and hit it real hard. Like 6 people lined up against the wall looking at me.
They're like, what the hell was that?
Yeah. So eventually, some of us started doing a show. Actually, they started without me and had me come in a little bit later. Old Milwaukee, and that was Mike Hoth was in it, and Kurt Scholler, Tom Clark, Eric Price, Dave Tooney, Brian Allman, and we started doing shows out here, and it was just kind of like when we started the Alewives. I felt it was like, after a couple shows, we just got our thing going, and we were just having so much fun and kind of creating our own new style of doing a long form. And we started doing these cage matches at Improv Olympic.
Okay.
And I forgot, what did we win? 87 in a row or something like that.
Nice.
It's like you go up against another group and they decide who is funnier, and that group comes back.
Yeah.
So after, I think it was 87 weeks, I might be exaggerating, maybe it was 77. I don't know. Anyway.
It was 3, but that's okay.
Yeah. It was over a year.
Okay.
And they're like, all right, well, you guys can just have a Friday slot. We started just doing a regular slot there. And that became my favorite thing again.
Yeah?
I think we're doing the best shows that I've ever done, personally.
And are you still doing them? Do you still perform with Old Milwaukee?
We were doing them until the pandemic started. And
Yeah.
then it's hard when you're in a different room and there's no audience.
Right. And the whole world shut down. Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, maybe it'll start up again.
Yeah, we got together a couple of weeks ago for Tom Clark's birthday.
Okay.
And we all kind of rap about it. I'd love to do it. We've been making an effort to get together here and there during the pandemic. We'd all, every once in a while, come sit in my backyard because we can sit 6 feet apart from each other.
Oh, God, this has been awful, hasn't it?
Yeah, it hasn't been the most fun.
Do you still keep in touch with the Alewives, the people that didn't go out to LA?
Yes. I keep up with the ones that didn't move to LA more than the ones that did, for the most part, besides Kurt, who I see a lot.
Oh, you don't talk to Rob and Dan much anymore?
Not really. I mostly, like, once a year or something, Rob and I will have some business thing where we discuss, every once in a while, Dan and I pretend we're going to get together and go for a drink, but it's hard to get him to actually commit to something and be there. He's just busy.
Yeah, busy.
And we just kind of grew into different worlds, I guess. We still talk about doing a reunion show every once in a while. One of us will mention it, and everyone will be like, yeah, let's do it. And then it never happens.
Like a Dead Alewives reunion show?
Yeah.
In Milwaukee?
That's what I said it would be the most fun to do.
Yes.
Yeah, I'd like to come back and have a couple different bands come do shows with us. And
oh my God, I would freak out of my mind. That would be so cool.
I don't think we've done it since, 2003 or something like that, maybe.
Wow. Well, now you were instrumental, no pun intended, in bringing the bands to the Alewives shows to perform with you, right? That was like kind of your thing. You were the music guy.
Yeah, I don't even remember why I decided that would be so cool to do. I guess it's just because they had a keyboard person. Yeah, okay, that's how it started. I'm wrong. They had a keyboard person at ComedySportz, Paula.
Paula Foley.
Yeah, she did all of the music, and it really added something to the shows.
Yeah.
She really paid attention. And then we had, we tried a lot of other people, and some of them were good, some of them weren't good. But then there's like this point where it'd just be like, Peter, you're on this remote doing music. I don't know how to do music. Just push the MIDI button. And that was just interruptive.
Right.
So I was terrible at it. I always hated when there's a point where I broke my knee and they were performing and they were like, well, instead of giving you that workman's comp, we're going to have you do the music. I'm like, I don't know how to do it. And just be sitting there in the corner sweating in a cast, pushing buttons and playing Happy Birthday while they're doing a scene.
Right.
Yeah, I was terrible at it. But So then I knew some people who were really good at doing music. There's this guy, Dave Adler, up in Madison, who was fantastic at music.
Yeah.
So we had him come down and perform with some guys. I think Willie Porter was one of our real early guest musicians. Yeah. And then I just started getting into having more and more bizarre stuff come in. So, I was in the music scene a lot. So I started getting, every once in a while I'd have like a hardcore punk band come in.
Nice.
All the guys from Dykreutzen, which is one of the best Milwaukee bands around. Have this other group called F-Face is what we'll say on the phone.
Okay.
They were amazing. They had 3 full sets of drummers. Tom New's brother was one of the drummers. Paul New, great drummer.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. Anyway, this band was excellent. Just this wall of sound, and coming after this comedy, you're sitting down at this comedy show, and there's 3 drummers. And you never know what you're going to get. The next week you'd come in and there'd be 4 violinists from the symphony playing.
Right.
I loved doing that. I loved just shocking the audience with a completely different style of music that they wouldn't normally get to see.
Yeah. Well, I remember watching the shows, and sometimes the band would get comfortable enough to play kind of the background music during your scenes and not just perform at halftime or whatever.
Yeah, we would always give them the option of it. And sometimes they were good at it and wanted to, and sometimes they hated that and were terrible at it.
Yeah. But
there were definitely some chaotic moments when you explained to them, no, we get it. We absolutely get it. And they did not understand. And I remember we had this group that was like Funkadelic, the Electric War Babies.
Okay.
It's about, there's like 9 of these guys who I don't know how I came across them. They're really fun to watch, though. They really were like, they're dressed in like sheets and diapers and stuff and dancing. It's really just crazy. But their funk music was fantastic.
Okay.
And I think I told them, hey, we'll give you, I'll get you a pitcher of beer. And there was like 9 of them, so I gave them like 3 pitchers of beer, and I was like, all right, we'll just get the cost of that. Well, they just thought that was going to keep happening, so they racked up like 27 pitchers of beer.
Oh my god!
They would just start playing in the middle of our sketches. Like all of a sudden, this funk song would come out real loud in a horn,
and you're like, ooh.
Yeah. All right. So yeah, sometimes they didn't go well, but.
Well, I only remember the times they went beautifully, so.
For the most part, they were really neat. There's a lot of really fun stuff.
Yeah, for sure. Super fun. So as far as comedy sports goes, can you remember what your favorite game was?
I like the longer stuff. So I like to do replay because you could just do an organic scene without any real form to it.
Yeah.
And then you get to twist it up a little bit. I always enjoyed doing Day in the Life, stuff like that.
Yes, that's a great one.
And then in the later days of me being there, we started doing, I forgot what we called it, but you would just make up a game. So the audience would make up the title of a game, and you had to make up a game to go with it.
Oh, like Game-O-Matic?
Sure.
Was that it?
And I liked that because there's a group of us who just had a mindset of our long form game. So you could really try to just make up a game that was more set on making a scene.
Right.
I don't like the gimmick stuff that much. It's, I understand there's a place for it, but I don't think Comedy Sports even does that stuff that much anymore. But when I started, we were doing a lot of Dr. Know-It-All and stuff like that. And
sure.
It's like, after you do it once, it's great in a workshop, but you kind of get it. It's not something the audience wants to see 10 times in a row.
Right. No, I'm with you. And as I've said many times on this podcast, I'm terrible at the pun games, which are very gimmicky, the 185 and I'm just, my brain doesn't work that way. I just want to do a scene and see what happens, see what comes of it and what characters can be developed. And, that's more fun.
Yeah, it's a lot more challenging
yes.
and more rewarding.
Yes, definitely. Instead of doing, you're right, like Dr. Know-It-All or Arms Expert every show, it gets tiring for the players. I mean, the audience enjoys it unless they've seen a lot of shows. Then they're like, oh, here we go again. You know?
Yeah. And that's why, getting into that, once we were allowed to start doing stuff that gave us a little more challenge, it was, I enjoyed it a lot more.
Yeah, definitely. What was your favorite style to replay a scene in?
Jeez, I don't know. A funny one? It's so hard to say because, if you'd get rap and you killed it, it was great.
Right.
If you got rap and it sucked, it wasn't so great.
That's true. That's very true. I mean, was there ever a suggestion you were hoping to get as far as style? Were you like, oh, I can't wait for the dialects, or I really want, emotions, or was there one of your favorites?
I don't know. I don't remember it being that way. I just remember really there's certain stuff that you'd be like, oh, okay, that one's a drag. Gregorian chant. How am I going to make this exciting? So obviously anything with more energy is more fun. I was a very energetic performer, especially when I was young.
Absolutely you were. You had so much energy.
Yeah, I was very physical too.
Yes.
And so anytime I could, I had to tone that back too much, it was less fun for me.
Well, is that the kind of performer you would describe yourself as, a very physical performer?
Much less now, but I'm still pretty animated.
Yeah, for sure.
But not, I used to be just a maniac. I mean, Jesus, I broke so much stuff performing.
Did you break your knee while you were performing?
I blew one of my knees. I blew just before a show when I accidentally bounced a piece of paper on purpose off Kurt's head. And, tackled me to the ground and hyperextended my leg.
Oh my God.
That was the first time I blew one of my knees.
The first time of many?
And then once Dan Harmon and I were in Madison, that was another thing. When we would go to Madison, watching those guys was such a treat for us. They were kind of our heroes too.
Yeah.
The old Madison group that all went up to New York, Mike Rock, Tallman, and Dan Fleming, and all those guys. Anyway, so I was with them, which was always really fun to go perform with those guys. So me and Dan were filling in for some people and doing a show up there above Wendy's in Madison.
Yeah.
And I was doing a replay, and we got heavy metal for the musical suggestion. So, I had long hair at the time.
Yeah.
So it starts out and I'm on one of the bleachers or one of the benches, and I'm whipping my hair back and forth, and I jump off of the bench, doing the flying through the air with my legs split, pretending I'm playing guitar. And I kind of spun in the air when the bench fell down.
Oh, no.
So I landed sideways, and my leg bent sideways, which the whole audience got to see.
Oh,
no. And I rolled off the stage and came back on, and my knee was about the size of a large grapefruit.
Oh, my gosh.
And I remember I didn't want to go to the hospital in Madison. I was like, Dan, stop at a 7-Eleven, buy some beer or something for me to drink, and drive me back to Milwaukee. So Dan drove me back. I got drunk in the car on the way back, and he dropped me off at emergency.
Oh, my gosh.
And I was in a cast for about 6 months.
6 months. Good job. That was a good injury.
Yeah, I had to have my ACL rebuilt. It was pretty lame.
Oh, my gosh. Oh, I remember in my youth playing and always getting hurt when I performed in Madison, just leaving there with bumps and bruises and breaks, and just it was a disaster. But then you knew you were good at your job, right? You'd come out with injuries and then keep playing.
What year did you start in Madison?
I was in Madison 95. I think I started there in 93, like workshops and stuff. I think I started playing in 95 in Madison through 98. I want to say.
Yeah,
it was after those guys left. It was after they all went to New York, and then there was a new group that started. Mark Molnitsky, Brian Judkins.
Yeah, those guys were all there, but they just moved up the ladder. Yeah.
Right, exactly. So it was different than when you were going there to perform. But
I still remember all those guys. Though those guys are all still good friends. They were great to perform with.
Oh yeah, I loved performing in Madison. It was so much fun.
Yeah, it's such a very different. I mean, that made us grow a lot too, because they were so different from the Milwaukee mentality.
Yes, definitely.
And that was another really cool thing about ComedySportz is that every city had a different style sort of that they would develop. And then we'd all get together once a year and you'd see what everyone else was doing and, pick up what you liked and what you didn't like. And, it's really cool. It's such a fantastic family of people.
Oh my gosh, 100%. Yes. I love that everyone I interview says that. Like, it's just such a wonderful family that you become a part of. And even once you stop performing at ComedySportz, you still have that family.
Oh, please let me bring it to my attention as soon as you interview somebody who's just like, oh, those, Jesus, I am so sick of ComedySportz people.
Right, blah, 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 blah.
Where's part of my life making people laugh for money?
Did you play in LA when you went out to LA, or you didn't do LA ComedySportz?
I didn't. Okay. I went to a couple rehearsals, and I don't know. I think my history preceded me. I didn't ever really get asked to perform here.
No. What's this history you speak of?
Well, I was, I was kind of naughty in Milwaukee.
Oh.
I got us in some trouble with the Alewives.
Oh, was this the poster incident?
The poster incident was one of them. And, just the fact that I was doing shows that weren't ComedySportz, it just was kind of a sour spot for a while before anyone was doing it. I think it took Dick and the management some time to accept that people were going to change and do different things that were going to be competition.
Sure. Well, what's incredible about that, though, is, yes, back when you guys started the Dead Alewives, that was kind of like the first group to branch off and do their own thing. And now they're everywhere. There's just tons of groups doing their own thing. And I think that all started back with you guys.
Well, Brady Street did it before us, but I think Brady Street was already a group before they got into ComedySportz, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, they were. They were already Brady Street and then came into ComedySportz. Like, you guys were ComedySportz and branched out of it to do something else.
Yeah, and, I understand that it had to be challenging and feel like you were being betrayed. But, I think we've made our peace with it. I have nothing but gratitude and respect for Dick and what he's done for me. It really has changed my life, and it's appreciated. I gotta definitely mention how much Bob Orvis changed stuff for me too.
Oh yeah.
During the hardest times, Bob was there and gave when we were being punished for stuff. He would make sure we got shows so we could keep living.
That's nice. Yes, he was good at that. Always giving people the shows when they needed that.
Yeah, and the remote show is, sometimes there is this weird thing where, how people got scheduled was very diplomatic, but Bob was just like, no, I want these players on the shows because they're the ones who are going to perform well for me, and they can do 3 shows this night and get them done well, and that was really cool.
Yeah, so, for sure.
He definitely saved a lot of us.
That's good. Do you still talk to Bob and Dick?
I don't. I've been texting with Dick a little bit here and there. It's nice. I told him that next time I come, I'd love to take them out to dinner. I really would love to see them.
Yeah.
I make more of an effort to see Bob because we were just, Bob and I were more friends. We hung out more.
Sure.
We hung out. We were friends. Dick was always more of my boss, even though, you say you're friends and stuff. He was my boss.
Yeah. How often do you get back to Milwaukee?
I try to come once a year.
Okay.
It depends on, what's going on.
Well, if you guys ever do a Dead Alewives reunion, count me in for front row. That's awesome. I would love it.
Yeah, I think there'll be at least 3 other people who will try to get those front row seats, so there'll be some competition.
All right, we'll have to throw down to get those seats.
I've had, and I have band member friends who are always like, if you guys ever do a show, you got to make sure to let us know. We'll play.
Oh, yeah, for sure. The chemistry between you guys and just the comfort and the things you were able to come up with as a group was just incredible. I don't think I've ever seen a group since then do what you guys did in the Alewives.
God, I have so many videotapes that I've been going through, and there's so much footage, because I have probably 200 shows on videotape.
Yeah.
And, a couple hundred radio shows that I listen to them and watch them here and there. And I still am mesmerized by how talented and how good some of the shows were. It sounds really corny for me to say this about myself.
No, I don't think so.
We did some really good work. It's
No, for sure.
We were making up such crazy, bizarre stuff and committing to it.
Do you remember, all of you guys had recurring characters at some point during your run. Do you remember what one of your characters was that would come back every once in a while?
There is one character that Rob Schrab always would make me do that was funny once, and he'd call me in again, and it was never funny again.
Oh, no.
And his name was Mr. O'Hausen.
Okay.
And it was just stupid. It was like a misunderstanding where I walked into the scene and I was addressing Rob as Mr. O'Hausen. I was like, Mr. O'Hausen? Like he was supposed to say, yes, I'm Mr. O'Hausen. And he instead thought I was introducing myself. And that was the humor of the scene.
Okay.
And to recall that character made no sense at all. Hey, it's Mr. O'Hausen. Yes, I'm Mr. O'Hausen.
That's me.
There was no character. That's my reoccurring non-character.
Okay.
Sean and I had these characters, Bob and Zeke. I used to do it quite often.
Okay.
In the beginning, which was another not a very proud bit of mine. Just a hillbilly who talked too fast. You know, yeah, we got boats, we got pay, we got everything you need. Isn't that right, Zeke? And Sean goes, that's right, Bob. I
don't even know what you're saying, but it's funny.
Yeah, that was that picture that I was mentioned was in the journal or whatever magazine it was in.
Yeah, you were posting some things on Facebook, right? Some of these things that you've had, these articles.
Yeah, I spent one night where I pulled out a whole bunch of stuff and started posting, but there's so much stuff.
Right.
That's kind of what threw me. Like I forgot I guess we did Alewives for 7 years before I left town.
Okay.
So, 1 to 3 shows a week. It adds up pretty fast. So I have, I used to make a poster every week for these shows, and we'd go around and put them up. I have stacks of those that are just hilarious, the stuff that we'd put around town.
Well, yeah, I mean, that was back before the internet. So advertising was you walking around and putting posters up, right?
Yeah, there's like 5 businesses that would let you put them in their windows. So you got to know all those people real well. And then, you'd go put a couple at the university, and there are some places that would let you put like cards up, but not posters, so that you have the little print quarter-size sheets and put those out.
Okay.
And yeah, it's expensive. It would take me 4 hours or something to make a flyer.
Yeah.
And you'd go print them up, and then you have to go put them out all over the place.
Right.
So I was kind of in charge of all the money and everything too. So I would, we'd have someone take money at the door, and then they'd give it to me, and I'd split up most of it between the performers, and then keep one share of it we'd throw into a fund that would be used for printing stuff and if we other expenses that we'd have to incur. Boy, that's got to be the least exciting part of an interview you've done.
No, that's okay. It's just fun talking to you. But I want to learn about your nickname in ComedySportz. Was Psycho 3?
Yeah. I don't know if I ever got to pick a nickname. I don't think I did.
Okay.
When you'd run on stage, Roger would make something up for you.
Roger Hubba Hubba Hebner. Yep.
And I don't know. I think it's because I would make kind of a psychotic-looking face, a maniacal face, and I'd slide into the apology box at the front of the stage.
Sure.
Because that's how they do it. You'd run up and be like, introducing Peter. And you'd slide up into your spot. And I'd freeze and make this kind of crazy look. And he started calling me Psycho. And then it became Psycho 3 because there was a Psycho 2, I guess. And then because I had a motorcycle, it became Motorcycle 3.
Okay.
Or Motorcycle 3. Which, again, didn't make any sense to the audience. But what the hell?
What the hell?
I never cared that much about the nickname. I figured I would prove myself in the comedy that followed.
There you go. So what keeps you busy now in LA?
Well, I have a business restoring vintage BMW motorcycles.
Wow.
And that keeps me pretty full-time busy.
Okay.
I Also a pretty ridiculous record collector.
Okay.
I DJ a lot out in Los Angeles when there's not pandemics going on.
Oh, you do? I didn't know that.
Yeah, I did a little bit in Milwaukee, and then when I moved out here, I started DJing more and more and collecting. And then I inherited a gigantic record collection from this guy, Bob Hite, who was in a band called Canned Heat. Mm-hmm. He was renowned as being one of the bigger collectors in the world when he passed away.
Wow. In
the 70s. So that kind of doubled my collection. So now I have a house filled with records. And I might as well share them.
There you go.
It's the 45s. The little ones are like my favorite thing to collect. So I've got 70,000 45s.
Okay. Wow.
Which is
so you have a whole ridiculous amount. You have a whole room for all your records.
I used to have a record room. It spilled into my record living room, into my record dining room, and my record billiard room.
Oh my God.
But
they're everywhere.
Yeah, but that's okay. I don't mind having motorcycles and records everywhere.
That's awesome. Well, before we go, I have one last thing. We're going to play a quick game of Would You Rather. I always end my interviews with this, getting to know our guest just a little bit more. I'm going to have you pick a category, okay?
All right, sounds exciting.
You can pick either pain, fear, and discomfort, appearance and embarrassment, or food indigestion.
These all sound so fantastic for me. I guess I'll go for the middle one. It seemed like it'd be the most ridiculous.
All right, appearance, embarrassment. Would you rather have a bird that says F you every time someone walks in the room, or have a dog that humps your guest's legs?
Bird. I'd go for the bird for sure.
You'd go for hilarious. The bird. Oh, all right. I was thinking dog would be kind of funny.
Yeah, I kind of hate having my guests have leg, though.
Gross.
You made this happen, you know. This wasn't my fault. I was just sitting here and having a nice morning.
So it's the bird for you, huh? The old FU bird.
Hey, I'll take the bird over. You know what you get with a dog that humps.
Well, hopefully I can walk in your living room someday and hear a vulgar bird. That would be super fun. Peter Alberts, thank you so much for your time today. I've loved talking to you, and I hope you guys do come back to Milwaukee and do a reunion show. That would be amazing.
I do too. If anybody else will do it, I will absolutely do it. I miss all of these guys a lot.
Yeah.
And I would love to all get together and do a show. It was really the best days of my life.
Well, you got to start it.
Those days.
You got to tell those guys, we're doing it. We're going to Milwaukee right now.
All right. I'll get on the phone. Wait, I'm on the phone. I'll get off the phone.
Peter Albert, everybody, thanks for coming.
By the way, it's Alberts.
Alberts.
Just make sure that.
Have I been saying Albert the whole time?
Did you call the right person? Do you think I was somebody else?
I really thought you were somebody else.
Well, either way, thanks a lot for having me. It was a good time.
Thank you so much, Peter Alberts.
All right, you have a good day.
Thanks, Peter. The ComedySportz Podcast is produced and engineered by Kyle Hanneken. Our announcer is Mr. PJ Rockwell. Feel free to like us on Facebook and follow us on Instagram. Comments and inquiries can be sent to the ComedySportz Podcast at gmail.com. Created and hosted by me, Christine Rollo Capriolo. See you next time.
The ComedySportz Podcast is an independent production made by CSz players. The views and opinions expressed by the podcast host and any guests are their own and do not represent the views and opinions of any CSz location or CSz Worldwide. Vocabulary used by the host and guests is not necessarily representative of the CSz brand.